The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed in this podcast
Blah, blah,
are.
blah. It's entertainment, people. Enjoy the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unboxing Photography with Jim and Ricky. I'm Ricky. On the other side, I have Jim. And it's been a while, so glad to be back. It feels good to be in my little corner on the microphone once again, talking to my wonderful photography friend and friend in life. I'm going to say brother from another mother, Jim McDermott.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
Good.
So we are doing a little catch up before we started recording. And here we are. I do want to apologize for the delay really quick. Life is getting busy. I'm trying to finish my university undergraduate degree, and I'm down to 2 more classes. So that's where I've been. Jim, how about you?
Just the summer was crazy because I was running kids back and forth to camp, and sometimes my boys were in the same camp, sometimes they're in different camps, and it was like here, there, everywhere. So the summer's always crazy. But then the fall comes in and they're back in school, and then they have like day of off on different days or the same days. There's also the holidays and parent teacher conferences. So it's like I've been, as I mentioned to you before, I've been in like daddy daycare, just spent a lot of time with my kids and,
Yeah.
just doing a lot of parenting. So haven't been shooting as much as I would like to. I think I've only shot like 3 rolls in the past 3 weeks or something like that, which is pretty minimal for me. Um, but yeah, that's kind of been the story of the fall. It's always like when they get back to school, the beginning of the school year is always this kind of like stop, start kind of a vibe. And then, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, boom, 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 and like, and so yeah, so I'm feeling a little just like I've been in a marathon.
Okay. The Iron Man. You did the Iron Man
No,
challenge.
yeah, yeah. Except it's less iron and more like pudding,
Okay.
pudding man.
Pudding Man. There we go. I'm right there with you. I just took
Yeah.
my PTU, my physical performance review. I passed. And now I'm in my week off, and then I go back to exercising again. Now, I don't know. Anyways, where was I with photography? I'm dwindling down on my film. I got a roll right here, and been shooting a lot more film recently again, which I like. I had a small little camera bag that I dedicated just for film stock, and it was full. There had to be at least 80 rolls in there, and I'm down to like the last 6. So I'm going through it.
Wow, nice.
I want to finish all of that because I don't want it to expire. So I want to keep it nice and usable. But I'm also getting ready for my workshops with Phil Penman in Tokyo coming up
Yep.
in a few weeks. So I'm going to be busy. Actually, I think this might be the last time I'm able to record until the New Year's. Because after this week, well, maybe next week, but we'll talk about it. So, Thanksgiving's coming up, and I like to let the people spend time with their friends and family. And
So
then
your workshop with Phil or when? December?
it is in December. It's the first 2 weeks. We decided, since it got real popular, I would say we were able to set up 2 workshops back to back. And we extended them from 3 to 4 days. It's a lot. And we're shooting
Yeah.
longer hours now. So we're going to be quite busy. It's going to be 2 weeks of just photography in Tokyo. I think I'm just going to have to take a hard drive with me and after every day, just dump it because I'm going to run out of cards. Be going crazy shooting. But yeah, so it's going to be Thanksgiving. Then right after Thanksgiving, I go straight into the workshops. and then I'll actually have my daughter with me the following week. So I'm gonna be hanging out with her, and then it's Christmas, New Year's. So
That's great.
December is gonna be ghost mode.
December, it's cool that you and Phil are doing the workshops in December. When I used to work for Sony,
Hmm.
and there used to be something called Tech Fair, which happened in Tokyo every December, and basically Sony had all these divisions um, working on all these different projects, and it was kind of almost like a science fair for what everybody was doing. So it would be out in this like industrial park, like on the outskirts of Tokyo. You had to take this like train that took forever to get out there, and it was in this place that looked like really old school, like like 70s Tokyo office buildings kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and everybody would just show their stuff. So we had like a table set up because we were showing like electronic music distribution, like downloading music over the internet onto a device, or one day we'll be able to do this on cell phones. This is like 2000, but it was always be in December. And I loved being in Tokyo in December because um, it was pretty warm compared
Yeah.
to New York. It was not that cold at all. And then the other thing that was cool about it was the closer you got to Christmas, like there would be, I guess, because there isn't a religious component of Christmas in
Hmm.
Japanese society, culture per se, that Christmas was like it was like a romantic thing. Like Christmas Eve was like a romantic kind of a vibe or whatever. But I remember going through Shibuya, and there were all these guys dressed as Santa Claus on motorcycles, like riding around, like 100, on on motorcycles and scooters and stuff like that, just like dressed up as Santa Claus, like going through there. And there was all this like all the Christmas stuff was like very kitschy, it was like through that Japanese filter of everything, like they'll take Santa Claus and put it through a filter and it comes out the other end and it's not exactly right,
Yeah.
like it's a little bit weird. Things are a little bit like what? Like the take on it is like somehow got misinterpreted like a little bit and it comes out in this kind of funny, kind of cool way. Um, but I got just so many amazing pictures and I have so many fond memories of going to Tokyo in December and going down to Kyoto in December and stuff like that too. It's just like I mean, there's nothing like being in a Zen temple when there's like when it's snowing and there's like little,
Yeah.
I'm like I'm totally in a samurai movie right now. It's like, but anyway, I'm jealous because Tokyo in December is a great time. So you guys will have a great time.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. It is, we've been actually lucky that it's very like summer crossing over into autumn temperatures. And it's usually hit or miss if it's really cold. But the few workshops that we did, the last two, were just beautiful weather. It was so hot. If you wore a jacket or a sweater, you were sweating. So I'm prepared for that. I'm also prepared for if it's cold because you're right. When it starts getting close to Christmas, it gets really cold. And I like to think the Japanese are starting to like adopt Western holidays, specifically American holidays. So like Christmas, you're right. There's no real like component for them, but they just kind of adopted it and made it their own now. So they're kind of just mimicking everything Christmas. They even have Black Friday sales, but they're not as rambunctious as the U.S. where you got to go fight
Yeah.
someone just to enter the store.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's pretty cool. Halloween is a big thing over in Shibuya now. There's like an army of literally like an army of police so that no one gets all crazy out there. And it's a fun time. I have not experienced Halloween in Shibuya, which is like the thing to do around that time.
Yeah. It's just, I think what's great about it is the everybody's really enthusiastic and up about it, like the celebration of all the like I mean I mean obviously the great thing about holidays is the time that you spend with people that you care about, but then the other kind of cool thing about it is all like for me is like all the color and all the kind of stuff that goes with it, all the backstory stuff, so it's like um Halloween would just all the mannequins would be dressed in like Santa outfits or elf outfits, and there'd be just like all this like signage everywhere and special Halloween Christmas drinks and everything. So like the whole town, like you go into all these department stores, just like walk around Shibuya and stuff like that, and just there would be just all this Christmas stuff, and it was just like crazy colorful and displays and just all this stuff. It was just like this like Willy Wonka-ish version of Christmas, like
Hmm.
super crazy, colorful, like everywhere kind of a thing. So it was just a fun time to be down there. So, um, and then I guess you guys will probably do stuff like Karajuku and whatnot too, I would think, right?
Oh yeah, so we start our the workshops start at Harajuku only because like we start like super early in the morning, and that location is close to where we're at, and they have like this one park where we go to where it opens like at 6, which is like perfect.
Meiji Dori or what?
Yep, Meiji Dori. So we always start there. That's the welcoming speech and commencement. So after that, we just kind of I got the routes. It's all in here from years of experience of just wandering, and yeah, it is hard work putting together these workshops. I essentially build the entire course, and Phil he comes in and he assists with his teaching, but I have to like coordinate translator help. I find office spaces, stuff like that. So yeah, I made some really good like business connections out there, and yeah, I've noticed people are trying to steal the architect of the Tokyo workshops. There's a lot more workshops in Tokyo happening now all of a sudden and becoming real popular. But that's cool, right? You know, I like to think that I know I wasn't the first to do photography workshops in Tokyo, but I like to think that I'm the first to do like really cool ones. I'm going with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I know that there are definitely other people that have done them historically and whatnot, but I mean, I think it's like like anything else. It's like it's pretty difficult to do something that's completely brand new. Um, but like, I had a motorcycle. A friend of mine had a motorcycle touring company that I work with him on it. And he was from the UK, and we would bring people over, and we did things like ride cross country
Mhm.
on Harleys, from Florida to LA or Boston to San Francisco, or we do Route 66. And these are things that like people have done on motorcycles like forever. And so the thing was, what's the differentiator? What's the key differentiator? And I think for it's like you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it's like if you want to have a different experience for somebody, then it's really about putting in the research and saying like, okay, well, where are we going to stop? Where are we going to stay? And what was the vibe of our company? And what we were trying to do was take people to places that were different than the places that like we saw all the motorcycle tours went to like these specific places, and there were some of them that you kind of had to go to. But
Yeah.
then there were other ones that like there's all these other places that like we'd find some town in the middle of nowhere that was like really quirky and had like a bar that had like a lot of like kind of strange people in it, and had a great Mexican restaurant or something like that. And so we stayed there. And the funny thing was is that like the highlight places that everybody talks about going to, like, oh, we saw Cadillac Ranch or things like that, in Texas. People mention stuff like that, but the thing that stuck to them were like the unusual off the beaten track kind of places. So
Mhm.
and it also kind of gets back to photography. It's like, you know, we have projects and we do what we want to do, and then other people will do it. Um, and it'll be like, oh, I started doing this in this particular neighborhood first or whatever. And then other people started doing it. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, you started doing it, but then there's also people probably who did it. Like I take pictures in Soho of people on the street, and there's like people who've been
Mhm.
doing that shit for like 50 years. I can't be like, I'm the first guy that did it, or like, 'cause I'm not. I know I'm not. But it's like I want to be able to say I'm the first guy that did it this way. Like you
Mhm.
can do it, you can just have your photography, class or whatever in Tokyo, fine. But I'm the only guy, or you and Phil are the only guys that do it the way that you do it. And that's the thing, is what do you put into it? Where do you take them? How do what do you teach to people? All that other stuff. That's what matters. I'm happy to have the competition.
Mhm.
Like if um if I'm working in a certain kind of space trying to accomplish something with my photography, and I see somebody's trying to do the same thing, I'm like, cool, you know, let's look at what the pictures are like at the end. And
Yeah,
it's not like it's competition because we all do our own thing, but it's just gonna be different, you know?
definitely. It's a good segue. You mentioned projects, and
Yeah.
for those wondering, I apologize for the long drawn out introduction. Kind of a little catch up. But today's episode is about projects, and you're absolutely right. I don't know how many projects I started, and I always felt some kind of way about the term, right? And project has so many different meanings. And when I first started, whenever I would hear the term project, it meant it was like I'm doing something dedicated to make a book. But you don't have to do a project to make a book. Maybe you could do a project to make a print, right? So it could be for anything, any outcome, whatever you want it to be. And it started to become like a buzzword, right? And it started to bother. I don't know. I have this weird personality where stuff that wasn't popular that just gets like, I don't know, like trendy popular, you know what I'm saying? Like it's only popular now because it's trending. It
Well, but
starts to annoy me.
what's helpful is to think about why it became
Mm-hmm.
trendy, or why it became a thing, or why so many people talk about it, And I think that for me, and it's just my opinion about it, but I think what happens is that when we get into photographing,
Mm-hmm.
um, when we first get into it, there's so much to learn and there's so much to absorb that you don't really think about anything other than just what the ground is. It's almost like you parachuted into enemy territory, and you gotta, you know, grab your parachute, grab your shit, make sure nobody's shooting at you, and figure out where the fuck
Yeah.
you are, all that stuff, right? And you're like, you're not even thinking about the mission yet. You're just like, did I break my? Let me make a soft landing. Like, let me grab all my shit. Do I have all my guys? Where's the meeting point? All that stuff. I feel like when you first start, it's like, what camera should I use? What lens should I use? What should I shoot film? Should I shoot digital? Should I shoot RAW? Should I shoot JPEG?
Mm-hmm.
Should I use, preset? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I, ask for consent? Should I, do hit and run? There's all this stuff kind of bombarding you. And once you get past that, and you get to a level of confidence in your work, and you've kind of have a level of comfort of with where you are, and you've started posting it, and you get beyond the, hey, some people have looked at my pictures, thanks, great. You get to this point where you're like, okay, so now what's the point of what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people get to that point, they especially if they've been doing a lot of work and they've been progressing, and they put up work, and they see that nobody, they're getting a limited response, or they've reached a certain point with it, and they've gotten whatever likes they've gotten in there, whatever. And you have to start asking, like, I've invested all this time and this money, and what's the point, right? And so I think what a project can end up being, whether it's a book, or whatever, or I want to do a show or whatever, it gives you a sense that you're accomplishing something, or completing something, or that there's a fucking point to what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And what it does is it can help you keep going, because you say, I'm going to do a project because I saw this really cool thing. There's these guys that own a bodega, and I'm going to work for like 8 months taking pictures of these guys in a bodega, or whatever. And then I might do a book on a bodega, and I'll put out a book, and I'll sell the book, and that'll be that. And then that's done, but it sustains you because you have a point, you have an end goal, you have something you're trying to accomplish. And then the thing that can happen is when you get done with that and you finish it, you know, usually we're making books just for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people that bought the book that I put out are my photographer friends, or like people I went to high school with, or like family members. Yeah, there you go.
Great
Thank you.
book, by the way. I really liked it.
Thank you, bro. Shot 20 years ago in your neighborhood, in all the places we were just talking about before. But so you put that out, and then you go, okay, who did I create this for? There's no audience out there that doesn't know me, doesn't know my work. Like
Mm,
we're just kind of like, you know, all of this stuff that we're doing, these videos that we're creating, these photographs that we're taking, and everything, you know, we're kind of just turning each other on to what each other are doing with this thought that there's a brand, a gallery, a magazine, somebody that's going to come out of the obscurity, out of the weeds of social media and say, "Oh, your stuff is great." But really, what most of what we're doing is we're just kissing each other's own asses and supporting each other, and that's
yeah.
it, right? So a project is a way to kind of just make us feel like there's a point to it,
Hmm. Industry plant.
and but that's okay. Well, I think that might be the goal that you start out when you do it, and you might not even be aware of it. You might not even be aware that you need something to prop yourself up and keep yourself going, right? But the thing is, I think when you do a project, you might not know why you're doing it,
Hmm.
or you might think you know, but a lot of times you end up finding out things that you didn't anticipate, and I think
Yeah.
that's great.
So I agree 100% with everything you said. And for me, I think the biggest like characteristic of the project is knowing, right? Knowing why I'm doing this, knowing who it's for, right? If it's for yourself, which it should be, right? Because like you said, like most of the people, like if I was to drop my book tomorrow, right? I probably know I would probably sell 3 or 4 books, maybe more. I don't know, but I'm not expecting it to be the number one right off the bat. I don't have that large of a following, or maybe I do. I don't know. But for me, I know that it's for me and for people who love photography, the same as me. And kind of going back to the part where I was saying I started to get annoyed where people just kind of use it as a trend. Because, I would hear people say, oh, I started this project and I'm going to use taxi cabs as an example. Oh, I'm just going to shoot taxi cabs for 2 years straight. And then they're like, a week later, they're like, oh, I got tired of that project. I'm going to start shooting pictures of people with red shoes, whatever it may be. Right. So they're consistently changing what their project is. I use air quotes right there, just because it's like the cool thing to do. And it kind of goes back to, I mentioned it before, where just kind of like start to normalize words again, like photographer. How I constantly see, oh, I'm a film photographer because film photography slows me down. Well, shouldn't you have the ability to shoot at the same speed with a digital camera, right?
But I think you're talking about something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I meet lots of photographers and I look at lots of photographers' work because when I meet people on the street, they show me their work and oh, let's connect on IG or whatever. So I see a lot of people's work. And I think that sometimes, especially, it takes in any discipline, if you really want to be good at something, if you want to excel, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a real, photographer or whatever, like there's a lot of people who just dabble and who are hobbyists and they watch all this content and they read all these books and just like, you know, think about all the guitars that get sold. Guitar Center and all these other places that these huge businesses and Fender like making tens of thousands of guitars every year and Gibson and everything. Not all those guitars are going to be some guy used by some guy who or girl who ends up being some rock star.
Carlos Santana.
Yeah, most of them are going to be people who like struggle to play a fucking F chord and their fingers hurt, and after a while, then the guitar just goes under the bed, and then maybe they sell it on Craigslist 8 months later, But when they first get it, you know, they want to play, and they're excited, and they have that excitement. They want to go out there and do it. And sometimes in the doing it, we discover ourselves and we find out what we're meant to do, and we understand what our potential is. And sometimes our potential is, you know, time to flush. You know, it ain't always going to be, a
Coming
fucking
down.
Michelin star restaurant. It ain't always going to be the gold medal on the, the top step of the podium, or even, or even a bronze. Like sometimes we're just no fucking good at it. Like
Yeah.
and I use the guitar analogy because I was one of those people. Always loved guitars, loved music, got into guitars, started learning, trying to learn how to play. But then I realized, like, oh, if I want to learn how to play guitar beyond learning like cowboy chords and like strumming along and getting like a tab book or whatever, like I have to learn scales. I have to, I really have to dedicate myself to get fluency with the instrument. And I got to a point where I was like, I got two kids. I love guitars. I love the culture behind it and everything, but I'm never going to be competent player. I'm investing all this time and this money and space and everything. And I'm not going to be able to do it. Maybe if I was 17 or 18 years old or 15 or whatever, or even 25, maybe I could have done it. But at this point in my life, other than enjoying them as objects, I'm never going to be good at it. And you know what? There's a lot of people go out and will go buy an M11P Safari and take really fucking terrible pictures and feel like I have to learn, I have to do a project, I have to make a book, I have to do this thing because I have to justify this fact that I've spent all this money.
Yeah.
And
Right on. 100% accurate.
but you know what? I hope that those people after a while will realize, like, don't beat yourself up because you're not Cartier-Bresson. Don't beat yourself up
Mhm.
because you're not some great photographer. If you just get enjoyment out of it, you bought the thing, you go out, you get some sunshine, you talk to some people, you're kind of doing it, and you're trying to take some pictures and get a little bit better, that's totally cool and totally fine. And no one should criticize you for wanting to do it. Like now, if you take really shitty pictures and you know nothing about the craft and you have no technical ability and you're walking around like you're hot shit because you have an expensive camera, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you otherwise and show you and educate you as to why you're wrong. The internet is very good at doing that. The internet's good at tearing people down who are good. Never
Yeah.
mind if you suck and are cocky about sucking, and think you're
Yeah.
great. But,
I'm the best worst
but
photographer in the world.
yeah, but, you know, and we've talked about it before in these conversations. Like the gear at the end of the day it doesn't really matter. But all of these things, if you want to make a project, you want to buy an expensive camera, you want to do a book, blah, 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 whatever. We're here on Earth just to experience things. And sometimes you do these things because you learn what your potential is, and sometimes you have no potential,
Mhm.
but you just enjoy it. And that's fine. It's really hard to understand, to have knowledge of self and understand like what your potential is, why you're doing it, whether you should keep doing it. Because everybody, the flip side of all the internet being really bitchy is that there's a lot of kumbaya, like, oh, this is great. And I see a lot of people get encouraged on social media for work that has very obvious shortcomings and very obvious flaws.
Mhm.
And that's fine. But if you believe that when you get in front of people who know how to educate and really know how to be critical of work, it can be a very, rude awakening. But anyway, back to projects. The great thing about doing a project is you learn about yourself, and you could learn, like you just said, I don't have the attention span or the mindset or the ability to continue with this,
Mhm.
you know?
Yep.
Maybe that's what you learn.
I think again, it ties so much into knowing. So knowing that you're good or knowing that you're bad and knowing why you continue to do it. I think it all relates. I
I
am
kind of
the
have a good, go ahead.
best worst photographer, by the way. I've come
We
to
all are.
terms, yeah, that I like to just do it for myself. And whenever I see a really good photo to myself, I'm like, oh man, this is a really good one. I don't know how I took it. Feel lucky. Get all nice and like, perky, I guess. I don't know. It's a good feeling to know you take a good image, photo, photograph, whatever someone wants to
It,
call
it is, but just to be a hard ass for a second, for
it.
the amount of time that you've been shooting, I have a problem with what you just said. You should not ever be saying to yourself at this point, I don't know how I got this.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you're saying that just because you're being self-deprecating, you have some level of self-doubt, but for the amount of time that you've been shooting, you have
Hmm.
technical fluency with your tools. You know how this stuff works. You've looked at tons of other people's work. You've hung around with Phil and all these other people and talked to the JML, blah blah blah. Like to say like I don't know how I got this picture. Like if you really examine that, that shouldn't be a true statement at this point.
Uh, I think well, so. You are right, and it was more along the lines of all of not doubting my technical abilities, right? So yes, I know how to use the tools. I know how to the technical aspects of photography, right? But that's just one part of it, right? So I think what I was trying to say was, I don't know how I got this, was all of the stars aligned and the image was more better than I expected.
Well, a friend of mine, um, a lifelong, well, a guy I've known for like 30 years from the, or 40 years from the music business, said something to me that really stuck to me. He said, luck is the residue of design,
Mm.
right? And I guess what that means, and I remember you talked about this on one of the early group podcasts, would you rather have luck or skill?
Oh, luck or skill?
And and I think that those two things are inseparable.
Hmm.
And you don't realize it when you first start working because you accidentally, when you're first starting, you say, I don't know how I got this picture. Wow, that was great. Especially if you're letting a camera do all the thinking for you. If you're setting the exposure triangle yourself, and if you're looking at what's in the frame, there's you know what the fuck you're doing, right?
Yeah.
The thing is about the luck is a residue of design. If you are out shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and training your eye and you're looking at other photo books, so you're understanding how framing works, understanding how composition works, understanding how great artists have done it. You have fluency with your tools. You understand things like, the basics of photography, the exposure triangle. All those things come together. And then when a moment presents itself, you have prepared yourself for the luck because because let's say what you're doing is increasing your odds. It's like you're on that roulette wheel of great photographs. Instead of going up and throwing one ball in and watching it bounce around and hoping that it lands on the great picture, you're emptying your pockets and throwing a ton of balls onto that roulette wheel, right? Because you've learned you've looked at all these other pictures, you've gone out and you've shot a gazillion times, you understand, you have your tools, you're comfortable with your tools, you understand your technical aspects of photography, so you're throwing more balls on the roulette wheel. So all of us get those lucky shots that are like on another level where you're like, oh, this is so great, thank God, I got this. We get miracles, all of us get miracles and happy accidents.
Yeah.
But you to say that you don't know how you got it with if that's how you feel every time you bring the camera up to your eye, that's I don't believe that. That's like a noob would say that, and you're not a noob. So I'm glad we qualified that.
I will take that as a compliment, sir, and tip my imaginary hat to you. Thank you so much. Appreciate the humbling. Uh, but yeah, so again, I completely understand what you're referring to, and you're right. Years of training and just doing it right. You have the skills. So, hmm. Now I have to think of a new phrase to say whenever I get a good image.
Say I got a
Ah,
miracle,
yeah,
or
there it
the,
is.
I
Happy
I
miracle.
say that, or I say the photography gods smiled on me because
There we go.
uh, uh, I did a double exposure of somebody. I'd shot a graffiti wall that just looked kind of like interesting. And it was just like this color, these squiggly lines. And then I shot a portrait of somebody. And so when I developed the negative, the lines were completely in the person's body, not outside the body. So you couldn't see anything about them other than the outlines of their body. And then there was like all graffiti inside the body. And it was a color photograph. And I was like, how the fuck did I do that? I mean, I lined it up in a way where I hoped that it was going to layer on top, but I didn't realize that it was going to be confined to within his body. And subsequent to that, I figured out a little bit more why it turned out that way. But when I got it, I was like, this is an utter miracle. This is like, thank you, universe, for giving me this photograph. I can't say, and working with the multiple exposure stuff that I do, it's always like I have a general ballpark idea of what I'm trying to accomplish, but then what I get back from it ends up being a lot of times because you're layering something on top of something else. You don't always know exactly what it's going to look like. And I get miracles all the time, but I'm at least in the ballpark of knowing a general idea what I'm going to get. So, but I'm like where you are with that, where you go like, how did I get this? So that I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that doesn't happen to me, but how I got it was I have a general idea. I pulled up to the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get
Catch
back
me
to
outside.
yeah, exactly. I wanted to get back to projects because I have like kind of like a recent experience with this via somebody else. There's a photographer in New York named Sean Bruce, and he's doing a project. He shoots a lot. He's on IG. I think it's just Sean Bruce is his IG handle. But um, yeah, I've kind of seen him around. He's friend. I have another friend named Ryan David, who's a photographer, who's in the fashion industry, and like met Sean through Ryan, and I see him down in Soho all the time. Especially on the weekends. But he's been doing this project where he goes down to Soho and he has a board that says free photographs. Let me take your photograph, and he uses a cue and he has a bracket, and Harlow gave him some light. And what he does is he has a sign, free portraits, and it shows on the board like portraits that he's taken previously. Some people, he got Tony Hawk and some other just by coincidence by being in Soho. But so people, he'll set up on a street corner and random people come up and he'll photograph them. And so when he first started doing it, because I shoot a lot in Soho, but I don't, I do hunting and fishing, but I'm not, I don't want everybody to come up to me. I will approach people who I think are interesting to photograph. He's just asking people, come on up and being very democratic about it. But anyway, he was like, when we talked about it, he was like, yeah, I don't know how much, longer I'm going to do this. I think I got 75 portraits. I think I might want to get to 150 and I'm going to stop. I'm not sure. And he was on like Lafayette and Spring, which on the weekend is like a madhouse because there's a restaurant called Jack's Boy Frida, I think that a lot of people eat at. And it's just this intersection where everybody's crossing the street. So he was just taking mad photographs. And I said, well, because it's a project that he's doing, you know?
Mhm.
And I said, well, why do you want to stop? And he's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And people have said maybe I should do, a book, but I don't know, 150 people is a lot of photographs and, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, just it's okay to not know why you're doing it because knowing why you did it you get that from doing it. Like if you keep doing it, you m- will probably find out why you're doing it and find out a purpose for it. Like either you'll end up meeting somebody and it'll turn into something else, or someone will acknowledge you in some way and say, let's do this with it. Or you might just become the guy who does this and all these people start coming to you. You don't know. And it's okay not to know, but you'll know from the doing, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, you're right. And that day he got like bombarded with people, and all these people are sharing the images that he took of them on their social media accounts. So his audience for his photography, because we take portraits of 50 people in one day, and then they have whatever their audiences are, all their friends are all seeing your pictures. And then they're going, oh, these pictures are amazing. This guy does this in Soho. So all these people start coming to him. This is over the past couple of weeks that it's just mushroomed. And then he was like I think on some local news website. Harlow has been amplifying his work because he gave them the light and it's bringing attention to their products and everything. So he's like doing it, and it's kind of like turning into like a thing.
Mhm.
And
He made a name for himself.
well, he's doing something that it's kind of taking on a life of its own, which is kind of what I said. I'm like to him, I'm like, like why stop at a specific number? Stop when you feel like you need to stop, or or hone in on what you're trying to do because you've done a lot of it and you go, I don't like this part of it, but I do like that part of it. Like you'll figure it out. But it comes from doing. So, and I started to think to myself, like when you say the knowing and it's important to know kind of what your purpose is and everything. That is true. But I also thought like, the way that I kind of approach my photography, the Three Stooges, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So the Three Stooges are kind of like they're well-intentioned fuck ups, right? If you watch any Three Stooges
Yeah.
program, any of their shorts, they get hired to do a job and they go there, and no matter what their best intentions are, they make a complete disaster of it. Like if they're going to do somebody's laundry, they burn it. The soap suds go everywhere in the whole place. Somebody comes in and slips, water goes everywhere. They're poking each other. People are getting scalded. All this stuff is happening, right? It's total chaos. It makes no sense. It's completely got no relation to what they were hired to do. Like they went in with the best intentions and it's a complete disaster. But somehow at the end, it comes good somehow, usually.
Yeah.
Like they get hired to guard a house from some guy and they mess everything up, but then at the end they end up exposing some spy ring and they get medals pinned on their chest and they're heroes. Even though that was not at all what they set out to do, right? It all somehow comes good, even though they're complete screw ups, right? And I feel that that's kind of the way that I approach my photography.
Mhm.
I don't really have this crystal clear idea of what I want to do. I have a general thought about intent, but then all this kind of chaos and random shit happens, and like, how I develop the film, how it comes out. I open the camera back by accident. I meet somebody on the street and I end up doing something else. It's all this kind of like mess of whatever. And I don't have any idea, like, what's the point? Like, am I going to turn this into a book? Am I going to do it at a show? Am I going to try to get gallery representation? Am I going to try to work with a brand? I'm just like, I don't know about any of those things. I'm just going out and I'm just trying to do something. And so my project is kind of myself and my photography. It's just like, let me go out and experience the world and experience other people and kind of see what I get out of it. And then by doing that, something comes out of it that I didn't really expect or intend. So I know what kind of pictures I want to take. I know how to take them, but I might go out some days and get absolutely nothing, and other days I get like some amazing experience and something that I couldn't have predicted coming back to me. And that's okay. I don't need to have like this is exactly what I will do. Oh shit, it's not working, or I'm going to give up on this. Like all of that stuff, all of that, all of those pressures we put on ourselves for external approval or getting a dollar at the end of it or getting somebody to kiss our ass at the end of it.
Mhm.
Most of that probably is never going to come. Just enjoy the fucking ride.
Can sum all of that up with the word discovery. So adding your framework to my term of knowing, right? Everything that encompasses
Yeah.
the project of knowing. If you don't know, you discover. So as it unfolds, discovery happens.
You discover whether you know or don't know. And, you know, not everybody, I acknowledge that not everybody's going to look at things this way. If you look at somebody like Phil, he has a tremendous amount of intent from a marketing standpoint, from a business standpoint about what he wants to do with his photography. And as a result, he's put out best-selling books and he's gotten MoMA to carry his books and he's running all these workshops and Porsche did a thing with him and Leica does stuff with him and he's made a living and he's going out there and doing it. Okay. Not everybody who takes a mentorship with him or goes on one of these classes just because they take their class is going to be Phil, obviously, right?
Mhm.
um, they might extract some things from him and discover some things from him that help them or push them further down the road, you know? But we are all like individuals and we're all discovering. I mean, I'm sure he's discovering things about himself, even though Phil is probably like one of the most intentful photographers that I know. Like if you look at how he conducts himself in his work and in his and how he conducts himself professionally. He's an extremely intentful kind of a person, um, and photographer. So I'm not saying that that the only way to do things is the way that I'm saying to do them. But what I am saying is for most of us who don't have that level of intent, the discovery thing, just opening yourself up and saying like, if I don't get any of that external approval or financial reward or anything like that, maybe I might learn something about myself and learn something about the world. And a project can help you. It isn't about the book. It isn't about the end result. If you're going and taking pictures of like drug addicted single mothers or something like that, and you're going to some clinic and photographing the people who help care for them and their children being born and them going to treatment and all this other kind of stuff, you're having a human experience. And so you're learning about other people and the challenges that they face in dealing with all of that, the people who help them, the people who are dealing with it. But then you're also learning, like, how do I photograph this in my way and do it justice, right? And so whether or not a book comes out of that, or you get, featured in New York Times, or you get some kind of award, all that stuff is kind of ancillary. The experience of doing all that stuff is really where the reward is. And I think sometimes we can underserve ourselves as human beings as photographers by by not being there for the experience because we think that we're going towards this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, where the gold is the whole way along while you're riding the rainbow.
The outcome, the result,
Yeah, people focus too much on the result. Focus on the experience and the doing.
possible, seen it where people, well, I guess I can't determine that for them, right? Like someone's goal of their outcome is their own, and not for me to say. But what I will say is from people I know, and it seemed like everyone's outcome was to, I shouldn't say everyone, I can't speak general. The majority of what people's outcome, like the large percentage of the outcome, seemed to be like that big name brand ambassador, right? And they'll start off with their intent for this project for whatever reason. And as it's progressing, they're like, oh, this company hasn't even approached me yet. I think I'm going to just give up, right?
Well, the, do you remember when Kim Kardashian, you know how Kim Kardashian got on everybody's map, how she got famous?
The video.
Right, a sex tape, right? So
Yeah.
what happened after Kim Kardashian got, and now everybody forgets about that and they just know that she's a multi-billionaire and blah 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 and all that stuff, right? Um, but if you look who she was when she did the tape, what she looked at, how she talked, whatever, you would have never kind of thought like this is the end result of this. Never,
Mhm.
right? And what happened in the wake of that? How many people did like, I've got to do a sex tape so that I can be like
Yeah.
rich or whatever? It's the
OnlyFans.
same, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. People will look at other people who are really successful and look at what they did, and they want that success and they want that acknowledgement and they want that validation and they want that money.
Mhm.
And so they just focus on that. And this is human existence, especially right now with the worship of
Yeah.
celebrity and the worship of money beyond anything else. And, basically, it's not just photographers. Okay, so you're an ambassador. Honestly, who gives a fuck? Like, honestly, I don't give the tiniest fuck about being an ambassador for anybody, because why? So what? I get to use a camera for a while and not be charged for it, and then I can appear in somebody's marketing videos, or I get early access to testing things. Like, you know what? Is that gonna I, that will validate me so I can have a side hustle because he's a like ambassador. So then maybe he does mentorships and is a private teacher and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, so you're an ambassador. What are they writing you a check? Are they giving you free shit? No. I mean, maybe they'll validate you on some level and have you be a teacher with them or feature them in some ads. And then because you have that validation, you can have that be a market validation, which then enables you to sell something on the side, some other thing. But at the end of the day, like, who really fucking cares about being an ambassador at all?
Mhm.
Like, why is that a goal? It's like, it's like, I want to be an influencer. I want to be an ambassador. Like, who fucking cares about being an ambassador? I watched all those videos of everybody going to Wetzlar and doing like the M11V thing and kind of talking about that camera. And what I watched in those videos was a bunch of people really thinking carefully about what they should not say about the camera as much as they thought were thinking about what they should say about the camera.
Mhm.
You know? Like, and I don't want to just like pick on Leica. And I'm not just trying to pick on Leica, but the M11V, which we don't have to get into talking too much about, but for those who don't know, is basically a Leica M without a rangefinder, and it has an EVF. So it's like you took an M and a Q and put them together and made it so that you've got a camera that doesn't have autofocus but has an EVF, and you can put an M lens on it. A lot of people have been wanting it, and M's are like $10,000 cameras now. And this is not, and there's a justification for the M being that expensive because it's kind of a unique camera, and it's got a rangefinder in it, and a rangefinder is a very unusual thing, requires certain type of engineering. So that's one of the things that warrants that camera being so expensive. So then when they put out one that doesn't include that and just mounts M lenses, you would think, okay, it doesn't have autofocus, it doesn't have image stabilization. It just is a camera that has a good looking EVF and can mount M lenses. What might that camera cost in a rational world for having that ability? And as it turns out, not a whole lot less than what an M costs. But you can take M lenses and mount them to a Sony or any one of another number of cameras if you want to mount an M lens to a camera with an adapter, right? If you want to mount it natively to something that's not an M, I mean, it doesn't have a rangefinder. Now you have an option, which is the M11 or the MEVF, whatever they call it, MEVF, I guess, EV1. Anyway, so when you become a brand ambassador, are you allowed to have an opinion? Are you allowed to be truthful about the shortcomings of something by the camera that you're a brand ambassador for? Probably, I'm guessing probably you probably have to be very gentle about that stuff.
Hey,
If you
you
don't,
gotta watch. You gotta watch what you say for real.
yeah.
But so
And so what? And but so why? What's really the benefit of it? Again, you're not getting a check. You're going to be featured in marketing videos and stuff like that, and then maybe you'll get work with other brands, or maybe you'll be able to be validated in some way, so you'll be able to do workshops or something because they'll say, "Oh, he's a brand ambassador," so maybe it'll help with your side hustles or something, and you'll get to test shit, and maybe you'll get to use stuff for a while. Maybe you'll get some discounts on some things. Okay, whatever. But at the and it's cool. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be a brand ambassador, but if you can't be completely honest about things and you're not getting a paycheck from it, I don't know why it's such an aspirational thing, personally. I just don't. That's me, though.
it's it could be a misunderstanding for the image, right? oh, this person, he's this, he's got access to that, and it's got to be because of this, right? Self, they're they're drawing up their own conclusions without knowing all of the facts, right? Common, lots of people do it, right? It's just human nature to assume what you don't know, and it's like we were to look at musicians. We like comparing musicians a lot, right? You know, they get that deal, they get their advance, and all they do, and I'm going to use rappers for this example, right? So they get their $50 million advance, which is just basically like a credit loan, right? Here is $50 million that you
Well, it ain't
technically
50. It
don't
ain't. It
own.
ain't 50 million. It might be a million. But yeah. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
and but that's all people see, right? Because that's all people talk about. Or those musicians, they don't tell them that behind the scenes stuff that I'm actually broke and bankrupt, but this is just to pay for the cost of what the record is. But instead of paying for the record, I'm using it to buy jewelry and cars and
Well,
go
the,
to.
what But what we're talking about is we're talking about image versus artistry. And there
Mm,
are people out there who are incredible artists who, there's the business machinery of the music business, and they sign people and give them advances. And the way that record contracts work is advances are basically it's an advance against royalties, and you get paid royalties, and the royalties are really usually pretty small. And all the marketing that goes around marketing an artist's record, making videos, putting them on tour, publicity, all this stuff, all gets charged against that royalty. So basically, if you sell a million records, maybe that generated, $20 million in revenue for the label, because you think, oh, a million, and I sold them, or just for argument's sake, we'll talk about physical product, but like if you sold, let's say a CD was $20, which it's not, but if you sold a million copies and you go, oh, wait, $20 million, and my royalty is 50%, so I'm going to get $10 million. But that's not how it works, because all the marketing and all the expenses get taken out of that 20 million before you get your royalties. So it's 50% after all that stuff gets recouped. So every single thing you do, making the record, traveling, promoting, making videos, all this other stuff gets taken out. And you might sell 20 million, a million records, and still owe the record company money, because they'll say, oh, you haven't recouped all of it. You still owe us $2 million. Well, I sold a million records, right? But while you have that level of visibility, you can go do other deals with other people. You can go sponsor a liquor brand, do a sports endorsement, appear in commercials, all this other kind of stuff, go on stage and wear clothing by a certain brand, all these. And people like Jay-Z, et cetera, like have made themselves billionaires because they've, on that reputation, have created other companies and have like turned it into like a huge commercial empire. And that, in a sense, it's all side hustle. And that's kind of what this is in a lot of these cases. Is I think
mm,
if photographers will do things with these brands to get visibility and validation, and then have side hustles, which are the things that they earn money from, right? So if you want the validation to then help kind of raise your profile and say, well, Leica thinks this guy's, or Canon or Nikon or Fuji thinks that this guy or girl is the shit, so I'll buy their presets, or I'll sign up for their mentorship program, or, or whatever. So there's like a side hustle. It's the exact same thing, but there's a difference between what, you know, some people have aspirations of being famous and popular and recognized and have all that juice and whatever, and be validated and be at the parties and be behind the velvet rope and other stuff like that. And then there's other people that might have aspirations to just do better work and to be a better artist. And sometimes
mm.
those people have both of those sides of their personality. But a lot of photographers that I meet, if you say to them, I'm a street photographer, what do you go, who do you like? Blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, you like Robert Frank? Who's Robert Frank? Or that you're, or,
Yeah,
or whatever. You ask them about stuff that like you would think you would know about. Like if you're a basketball player, you want to be a basketball player as your life. Do you know who fucking Michael Jordan is, or, Kobe, or what? It's like, these are the people in our thing that you should know. And if you
should know
don't
these.
know them, then
You should know this.
what are you doing? And that's fine if you are somebody who's just having fun.
Yeah. I think you hit it with side hustle. Like photography, it has like the potential. There's a possibility that people who do it full time as a like actual career, but for most, it's a side hustle. It doesn't usually pay, and it's kind of like the music industry. Like you say, oh, we got to recoup this, so we advance ourselves our own money to buy all of this camera gear with the hopes of recouping all of our royalties and making something, the side hustles.
Well, and again, you never know. I mean, you're archived. Like I took a photograph of an artist in 2009 or 10. And then when that artist was going on tour a year ago, opening for somebody else and doing stadium tours, when the merchandise line was being created and there wasn't a picture of the artist that they liked, they used a picture that I took 15 years ago and put it on the shirt, and the shirts sold really well. And so a picture I took 15 years ago was hanging on the wall in stadiums, and people were going up and buying it. And I didn't know when I took that picture 15 years ago that that was the destiny of what that photograph was. But part of why I do what I do in terms of going out and shooting people on the street is keeping that muscle and honing that eye so that when I'm working with artists and doing BTS stuff or just running and gunning with them when they're doing promotion or going to a show or going to a recording session or something like that, that when I bring the camera up to my eye, all the other stuff that I've shot, all the thought that I've put into all those other frames informs what I'm going to do in that moment. It's that luck is the residue of design thing. It's not like
Mm.
I take my camera out of the bag every 6 months or every 8 months or whenever there's an opportunity. And then I'm there and I'm like, oh, what fucking button do I press again? I can't tell you how many times, like I've been at Mermaid Parade and photographers who I respect, who do good work, come up to me and hand me their Fuji or their Leica Q and go, this thing switched onto video, or it has this filter. Do you know how to change this? And I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, I don't
Yeah, I don't
know.
know. I shoot film.
But, or not even that I shoot film, just that I have fluency with my equipment because I'm using it like all the time. And I mean, what's great about a film camera is it doesn't have all that extra bullshit that like, how did I turn this on? I fucking hate that. I hate a camera that like I accidentally touch a button. It's like every time I open up a Word and I accidentally hit something and I'm like, why is everything in all caps now? I didn't know, or why is it formatting that? Why are there bullet points in front of every sentence? I don't know because I just don't have, I open up Word like once every however many months. So we're kind of like hypertexting all over the place and talking about all this different shit. But like, it's that thing of like, if you want to be there for that moment and have that ability, going out and working and working and working and doing it all the time and then saying and looking at other things saying, okay, my frames need to be better, how do I make them better? Let me look at photographers who have really good frames. Let me go into museums and look at paintings, because a painter decides everything is going to go in the frame, so let me look at how they composed it. And next time I bring the frame up, like you look at Alex Webb, go, boy, how does he do that? How does he do that layering thing? Well, he probably looked at a lot of paintings and looked at a lot of things by other photographers, and so he's done it so many times that he's seeing the potential, and and then he's saying, okay, let me frame this up, and I'm going to wait for things to like happen. It's not like he just turned up and said, wow, that's a great looking layer, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, the thing that
Yeah,
fucking amazes me in photography, it's like I meet photographers who literally are the equivalent of like they see a house and then they're like, wow, that house looks pretty cool. I'm gonna go to Home Depot, get myself like a saw, some drills, some nails, and wood and shit, and I'm gonna just make a fucking house. Why not? Cool. And then like
yeah,
you know, and no, that's not how it works. That you're
Yeah.
not you're not going to build a house that way. Like you
You
actually have to
could.
know what the
Yeah.
fuck you're doing if you want to make something good.
You're gonna be some resources short, but you could with just some screws and some wood. Anyway, going to transition to the photos of the week. But
Cool.
before we do, I'd like to wrap up the topic of projects. And for me, I will say, 'cause I'm a project manager. I got my project management professional certification, so it's official, people. It should have a beginning, the middle, and end. Not all projects have a middle. They always all have a beginning, and they always all have an end. Whatever your end is, it's up to you. You decide that. You gotta see it through. So, however long that takes you, it takes you. Just don't use it as a trendy buzzword, right? Stick to it. Whatever your outcome is, your result, whether you want to book, you want to be in an exhibition, whatever it may be. You want to be a brand ambassador, or you want to build a house. I don't know. Whatever it is, start, work, finish. That being said, I got two projects that I did finish, but I haven't printed yet in the book. So I do got two books done on digital, but I want to probably in the new year after I finish college, probably close that.
Cool.
Those
Which
two
is a good
projects
time
out.
for a project. And I would say, just to wrap up on projects, like I look at it like I'm the project.
Oh,
And
there you go.
and the beginning was when I picked up a camera when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle is everything I've done since then. And the end is when I'm dead and I can't take pictures anymore. And the whole time that I'm doing it, I'm just trying to figure out who I am, what I'm doing, what I can do with other people, how I can how do I relate to the world? How can I learn something about myself, about other people? How do I become a better photographer, a better person, all these other kind of things. And that's the project. And so when it started when I picked up a camera, I'm in the middle now, and when I'm dead, that'll be that.
That's a great project. I'm not gonna lie, I've never considered that thought before. It hits home. Good topic. I like it. We did travel around in different topics, but ultimately all with the intent of projects. So, with that being said, we will now transition into our photos of the week. Now, this was completely coincidental. His photograph of the week was by the same photographer of my photograph of the week. We had different photographs, but I'll still share the one that I originally picked, but I changed last minute. So we're going to start off with you. Let me pick your photo. Is this one. There we go. All right. Here we go.
Rodney Smith. Um, a retrospective book about him came out a few years ago. I think he died in 2018. Um, Not a lot to say about, this particular image other than the fact that it is not AI um, at all. I believe there's some backstory on how he got all the cabs there and got this shot. But he's an incredible photographer in terms of what happens in his pictures and had the purity of his frames and the motion in his pictures and how inventive he is.
Yep.
Um, and his black and white stuff is just as amazing as his color stuff. But if you can, I believe it's still on Amazon for a reasonable price, but if you want to be blown away by a photographer, Rodney Smith is somebody you should check out.
I really like this image from him, and I do agree he is one of the most creative geniuses when it comes to photography. Clearly, this is posed and it is set up. It must have been really expensive to get all of the taxis lined up there. If he got it coincidentally, even better. But
He didn't. He
hey,
definitely didn't get it coincidentally. This is
all right,
a setup. This is a setup shot, as were most of his photographs,
yeah,
if not
he
all.
is one of those creative geniuses where everything is intentional, and the use of the bridge with the circles, half circles, geometry. I think it frames this image a whole lot more. I learned about him late in my photography journey. I would say within the last year or so. I did buy his book. I don't know if it's the same one that you're referring to, but I did buy his book and
I think there's
completely
only one
just
out. I think there's
it's
only
got a
one
couple
book out.
it's got a couple
Does
books
he?
out.
Okay.
Yeah. I bought one. I wanted the one with the red lamp shade book cover.
Okay.
I got the other one. Anyways, I was after I looked through it and I was just marveled. I was like, he is one person I would just like to have a conversation with, just to kind of understand how he comes up with these ideas, because his ideas are just
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have ever thought of that stuff. So,
Yeah. He's like, to me, he's like the American Guy Bourdin in a way, like because Bourdin like had like a an unbelievable, like an insane amount of creativity. Like there's a book on eBay, not on eBay, that you can get, which is like he was hired by a shoe company to take pictures of like women's shoes, and you would think like, God, how boring would that be? And like the photographs are like the most. It's like a book of the most amazing photographs, and you're like, and shoes are in all of them, but you're like, boy, talk about like getting the memo and taking it a million miles down the road. And I think that Rodney Smith is similar in that he did a lot of work in fashion, a lot of portraiture, but always did something that was not just straight. Like he came at
yeah.
it at this like amazing with this amazing creative approach. And was somebody who, if you there's a video on YouTube, I think, with somebody who was his former assistant talking about him and his work process. And they talk about his technical mastery in terms of understanding what film stock to use, how to expose it, how to develop it, how to print it. Like he was a technical master of all of that stuff. So back to that luck is the residue of design thing, like the guy got these incredible pictures, but knew his materials and knew he had, it was this thing of I have a creative idea and I have the technical understanding to know what film stock, what settings for the camera to be, where to place the camera, what I should do for light. And this is all, most of this is all, I mean, maybe he's using reflectors on some of this, but most of his photographs were just natural light. So brilliant photographer.
And here is yeah. So definitely a brilliant photographer, creative genius. Here is your honorable mention.
Yeah.
Another great photo.
Yeah. But I mean, just look at the frame, right? He cuts the plane in half. You see the shadow. Look at the balance. I mean, obviously, this is a medium format photograph. He probably did on a Hasselblad or maybe a Rolly. Um,
It looks
the
six
way that,
seven. I don't see square format on this one.
yeah, yeah,
The last
yeah,
one I could say
yeah,
Hasselblad.
yeah. Maybe it's Mamiya, maybe it's an RB or something like that. But if you just look at the way that it's framed and look at the palette of her dress and the gradations of the sand and the sea and how it goes from very light to medium, and then the sky is darker, and like she's on this white wing. It's just, I mean, it's the way he framed it and the way that he chose the color palette is beautiful. It just goes to show you, like, you could get an assignment. Okay, we want you to go to the Caribbean with these models and like shoot this girl in a red dress on the beach. And most people would just like put her on the beach. Don't get your feet wet.
Yeah.
Stand her in front of some
Well,
water, click. And what
we'll
did this
get
guy
there
do? Oh,
eventually.
let's get a seaplane. Let's get her out on the wing. I'll shoot. I'll have the wing be right in the middle of the frame. I'll make sure you see the horizon. Like if you think about all the thought that went into this and how simple it is, but how smart it is. And you can have simple and kind of dumb, and you can have simple and brilliant. That's what this is.
Definitely agree. Another great image. You had some heaters the past couple recordings. So everything I think in both these images are intentional and belong. Second one is a little more minimal, but everything contributes well. So,
If that was a
right.
painting, it would be if that was a painting in a museum, it would be a masterpiece. But it's
I
a
would
photograph.
say it would be a Van Gogh, or are you going with Rembrandt? I would like to
Oh well,
see that as a Van Gogh.
that's a whole other conversation, yeah, about who that would actually be. But yeah,
Salvador Dali. All right.
definitely
So
not definitely not Salvador Dali. But anyway,
yeah, as I mentioned, we had the same photographer, but I changed up my actual photo of the week, and I went with my favorite image from Gordon Parks. And I seen this image on his book Atmosphere of Crime, which was actually done in Chicago. And I was like, I fell in love with this photo. And it's kind of like now you see it very cliche street photography style photo where you just someone's out on the street smoking and you just see the hand with the cigarette, right? But this one, I believe, is a little more meaningful because it represents freedom on this side, and I got this hand there, and I a little bit of finger there, and he's obviously in jail. This person, and on the other side is freedom, but he's not there. He is there by shadow, but he's not there. This is my favorite Gordon Parks image.
I think that's the cover of the book, right?
It is.
Yeah, I've got that book. It's great.
Great.
And
And
anybody who thinks they have it hard in their photography career, read Gordon Parks's autobiographies. He's got a couple of them. Read those books and then check back with yourself about how hard things are. That
I
guy
give
had
those a read.
some, yeah, he had some difficult upbringing.
All right. And then here's my honorable mention, which I stuck with Rod E. Smith. I saw this and I was like, I really love this image. It's in the book that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, how do you come up with this stuff? Like, look at the tones, the black and whites. They're evenly. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and just the hats, the fact that they're dressed similarly, in a way, it's like, is it the same person?
Mm,
I mean, it's not, but you could look at it and say, like, is it someone having a conversation with themselves, their imaginary self, their past self, their future self, their a conversation with their self in a elevated situation. Like, there's so much that you could kind of read into this or get from this. And then the other thing is if you look at it, it's like the back of the tree almost looks like vertebrae or something.
yeah,
So it looks very kind of like bony and primitive and prehistoric, almost like dinosaur bones or something. I mean it's the way that he picked the tree, and then look where the way that he framed it and where the way that he chopped off the frame. those tree trunks and the way that they're running off and extend off the sides of the frame complement the way that the positioning of the two guys are. You know,
Yep.
it's not. I would have, because I'm a stickler, I would have wanted to make it so that there was less empty space on the right side of the frame, that the frame was tighter up to both of the guys, which would have
Oh,
meant moving to the left, which
here?
would have meant moving, yeah, which would have meant moving to the left. And then, but maybe those branches, maybe those trunks have clutter on them. And that's why he cropped it the way that he did. And he couldn't move in any closer because then he would have had less of the trunks. Or maybe he couldn't turn. But I would have liked, the only thing I would like to see different about this image, and it's just me being precious,
That's
is
that's your Ralph
is
Gibson coming out of you.
exactly, it is. There's a lot of, there's just too much nothing happening over there that
I
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it
I
tighter.
think it works. I think it works only because there's actually it's kind of filled with the trees and the leaves a little. You can see the shadow very vaguely.
But if you put your finger over it, you block it off for a
Oh,
second,
yeah,
and
you
you look
put
at
your
the
finger
image
over
then.
anything. You
Well,
block
no, but you no,
anything.
but no, if you put your finger over that particular side of the frame and make your own frame with a finger, and then look at what the image looks like, then it's I think it's just more impactful because it's a lot of space dedicated to nothing happening. But like you said, that's just like that's unfortunately I am I I feel like the Frankenstein monster, like I was made by my maker, and I
I
that's why I
am
look at these pictures
fond
this
of
way.
Ralph Gibson.
Anyway, yeah.
Great, great, great. All right. So those are our photos of the week. Today we hit on projects and lots of good conversation. I do got some follow up after we finish recording for you. Some cool stuff maybe you'd like to participate in.
Yeah.
But other than that, any last remarks for the fans, listeners, and supporters?
It's always going to be the same for me. Well, everything that we say is opinion. I'm a super opinionated person, and it's because I really, care and respect and love what we're doing and the history of it. And I think it's important to understand that like nobody had, everybody's truth is their own, and my truth is going to be different than somebody else's truth. And the way to find your truth is just shoot, just
Yep.
go take pictures, and don't listen to people on YouTube and say, "Oh, this guy said this, so that's the truth." That's his
Yep.
truth. Find your truth, and you find it by taking pictures.
Definitely. Which we did get some comments on a couple of our videos, and people seem to really like the unboxing series. I'm going to stick with this for a little while. Maybe we can roll into interviews and we can tag team them, right? So it'd be
Cool,
a interrogation almost. Got to get the white lights
cool.
and flash them in their eyes. But anyways, I do appreciate all the fans, listeners, and supporters who made it all the way to the end. Thank you once again. I do appreciate it. I'm sure Jim does as well. We would not be here without you. And we do continue, at least I do, and hopefully Jim does too. So I'm just going to speak for him and says he does as well. So yes, we look
Of
forward
course.
to continue recording these unboxing photography videos, podcasts, because they come off both audio and video. Please hit the like, subscribe, and tell your friends if they like photography and not actual photography reviews of a camera. So, yeah, that's all I got. Jim, thanks again. You have a wonderful day. And all the fans, listeners, and supporters also have a great day. So,
Cool.
until next
Peace.
time, yep, have a great day.